Good morning and welcome to the Not On My Watch show. I am Dr. Baruch, and we, as always, have a great show in store for you. Thank you for tuning in and for viewing and listening to what it is that we will be sharing with you today. The whole concept behind Not On My Watch is it's not going to happen on my watch, and it's not going to be going on and you not know about it on my watch. So we've got a great spirited conversation that we're going to have with you today about just, maybe we'll frame it at the end, because as artists, as we seek to paint this canvas of a show called Not On My Watch with a guest that's going to bring us insight and information from a psychologist, with a financial background and a sociology background and just a been around the people background and doing good things and wanting things to get better background. It's going to be a good show. So you all definitely want to stay tuned. Please share with your family, friends, and loved ones. Let folks know that we're on board. And if you're looking at this after it's been recorded, please share it on your Facebook and Twitter pages so that folk can know that we're here and know that there's an intelligence that exists in the universe that is looking to bring resolution to problems that persist and expose intellect and expose issues that need to be brought to the fore. So again, my name is Dr. Baruch. I am blessed today to have in the studio someone who is going to be working with me forever, because she has signed on as the permanent co-host. She's probably smiling right now. Let's catch that. We have Sister Heleese. Good morning, Heleese. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing pretty well. How are you? Pretty
well. That'll work. That'll work for now. I'm doing very well. And Heleese, so that our audience knows who you are and you're not just a face with a name, tell us about who Heleese is. Where are you from? What do you do? What have you done? What do you plan on doing? And all of that kind of juicy stuff.
Well, my name is Heleese. I'm from Maryland. I've been here since 5th grade. Graduated from North Carolina A&T State University back in 2013, where I studied journalism and mass communication with a focus in public relations. Later on, I realized PR wasn't really my thing. I appreciated everything I learned from it, but I didn't really want to be in that role. So I'm currently in the process of figuring out where I would be most suitably fitted and how I can play my part in just making a difference, living a life passionately, purposefully. And so, my plan for the future is not solid yet. Hopefully I'll be working with young people, traveling, writing, just doing all the things that I love.
Great. Well, you're hired. That's exactly what we're looking for. Exactly. You couldn't have put together a more perfect resume for the job that we have for you here. I'm young. Kwesi, shut up. But of course, the information that we have will definitely keep you, and the agenda here that we have will definitely keep you within your purpose, as that's what we're all about. So we're going to jump in now to a show that is going to afford us the capacity to discuss what's going on in our world, because there's a lot going on in our world. There's a lot going on in our world. And here on the Not On My Watch show, our desire is to give people information that would empower you and that would give you the kind of support that you need in order to navigate this thing called life. Because our life is a little different than other people's lives. Just being a man of color, I can tell you, our life is completely different than what other people have to wake up thinking about. There are folks that don't have to think about what I think about when I wake up in the morning, and will never have to think about that because of the way the world has been created. So, or not created, but the way the world has been shaped as a result of us not doing what we're supposed to do, whoever the us are, right? Not doing what we're supposed to do, and not holding our position and doing what is appropriate in this season. So I have in the studio with me Brother Wayne Harris. Good morning, Brother Wayne. How are you today?
Good morning. Doing well. Thankful to be
Okay.
here.
Yep. Let's make sure we got your voice. And Brother Wayne, let's likewise. You hail from. Is that out west? Is Ohio out west?
Ohio's on another continent, my brother. If you
Yes.
didn't know, it's another place.
I've been there.
Midwest.
Midwest,
Originally
okay.
I claim Africa. People ask me where I'm from. I always say Africa, and you are too.
There
so
you
that
go.
gets the conversation going. But actually, I was born and raised in Ohio.
Great. And a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What's your background? Why did I want to bring you on the show? What level of expertise do you bring that would then qualify you to sit in the hot seat here on the Not On My Watch show? Come on with it.
Well, since you mentioned it, I think this full body tattoo that I have right here is permanent. That is a part of it too. I just happen to be a man of color, if you hadn't noticed, and the fact that I'm still walking these streets upright means I've had to survive some things. Dr. Baruch and I have known each other quite a long time, and coming in his facility, conversations. But just on last week, I walked in and I'd seen a video that he had posted with him talking. Man, it would just fired me up so much I couldn't wait to see him. And he and I just stood there and had such a great conversation. Like, man, you got to come. We got to do this again on the show. And so that's what really brought me here in the last few hours. But we all know it was designed for me to be here from a while ago. So try to help people.
Great. And your background, you've studied a couple of places, right? You've been to school.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm going to share with you, the perspective of I have been to School of Hard Knocks, right?
Yep.
But formerly, yes, high school in Ohio, went to a small private school there, Spring Valley Academy, as it was called. I came here to go to school.
We all know about Spring Valley Academy.
I'm sure you do. If you don't, you're going to know now.
Right.
Which, interesting fact, just to put it out there, I was the only black male graduated from my high school class. So for perspective, yes. Then I came here to go to school, and I have some papers on my wall to say I, did some time at Howard University, HU.
Okay.
So that's background. I'll give you a little more of it in a minute as to
Okay.
what brought me here in the fields of study.
There you go. That's what's up. And you all hailing both from Ohio, what do you all have to say about the Cavaliers?
This is bad. I don't keep up with sports that much, so no comment.
Well, I got to keep up enough just to keep my man card punched.
Yes.
So, so just in case I have to. Hey, great team. All for that. Yes.
Okay, great. There you go. Okay, enough of that. We'll move on.
You know what, Baruch, it's funny, but my daddy used to say, I quote him all the time, he says, son, why you going to sit and watch other rich men make money if you broke? Go
Right.
make some yourself.
That's
And
it.
from that time forward, I'd never been a big sport watcher. I mean, it may sound weird, but really, I have never watched a complete sport game all the way through. I mean, just for 3 hours, it wouldn't hold my interest, or I'd rather be doing something else. So that's the truth, though. So, but that's words going forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why watch other rich people if you broke? So.
That's right. And no matter what the outcome is, unless you're a betting man, and I'm not, and no matter what the outcome, it doesn't affect you. I guess there is some rush. Now, you think about in the sports arena, when Serena Williams wins against some, Hungarian, hulk of a woman, you get excited because like she beat her.
Yeah, right.
Or we beat her.
We're going to root for us. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right,
So we
right,
get
right.
excited behind that. Now, basketball would probably be a little different because there's a whole lot of us on both sides. Of course, the folks that are making all the money aren't on the court.
Right, exactly. The real money.
But so it's, and let's talk about, as we reflect on what's going on in the United States of America. Here it is. You have this gulf. You have this void between the haves and the have-nots, even in our community. You talked about what your father said to you. Why sit down, and look at them? Millionaires make more money, and you're actually contributing to their money with your pennies, because
Right.
we do through cable. If you're looking at it, and you can't get it over the airwaves anymore, so you got to do it through cable or dish. So somehow or another, what you're doing is contributing to their income. Right. And what is the direction, or what needs to happen so that we can begin to bring those that are having these trillions, billions, and millions of dollars that look just like you and I, bring them down to make them recognize that we're really in this together at the end of the day. When you hail a cab and I hail a cab, we both are challenged with the same reality. What do you think, in your opinion, Brother Wayne, is the reason for the gulf, the void between us, and what is it that we're going to need to do? Pulling on your finance, your economics background, and that vast knowledge. What are we going to need to do begin to bridge that gap?
Well, honestly, Dr. Baruch, first part is to realize that there is a gap. And I honestly believe today that the system, being as it may, is to get us to believe that we're okay where we are. It's amazing to come to this area, too. I think I pursued a finance degree, honestly, because I wanted to know about money. I wanted to understand what stocks and bonds were. I wanted to and planned to be wealthy. Who doesn't? So if I got there, it's not how much money you make, but how much you keep. In that, understanding the very basics of finance. Well, let's take it back to the beginning, because I do finance seminars and help people with finance. Look, if you are lost in 6th grade math, until you understand the basics of math, again, my daddy, son, if you don't know how to count, you're never going to have no money, because somebody who does know how to count is going to take it from you. So where do we begin? We have to begin at really educating from childhood, because it's true. Until you understand that a percent is a fraction, and what those two mean together, how are you now going to understand? We keep talking about starting businesses. Well, how are you going to sign that paper? How many people understand what it is when they sign that mortgage for that house? They don't get it. Who can amortize a loan? Who understands percentages? So that there is a gap, I know is the first step. Because most people are intimidated by math. Most people, and that's math starts with an M and money starts with an M. To get our young people, to get our adults to go back and say, that's where I always start. Let's go back and master 6th, 7th grade algebra. So now we can go forward to understand why you really maybe should not, maybe a $200 pair of sneakers is not a good investment.
Right.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have them. I'm not saying anything there. Yeah, but maybe it's not the best thing towards your future. You see that there is a gap that you can ride, that you can sit at the light and your old raggedy, we used to call it my hoopty, and you're okay with that.
Yep.
That it's all right. It's cool to break down on the side of the road, but my family's in the car with me. So all of that comes under, first and foremost, really what I came to talk about, life. We got to make a choice that we want life. This American dream is still there. But if you don't want it, that's where I say we need to start. The desire, the want to get, to have, to be, and to live.
Is it really there? When you start looking at, I was looking at a Tim Wise. You're familiar with Tim Wise, probably.
Yes,
right?
I heard that name,
okay.
Yes.
And I was looking at a video that he created, and he talked about the what is called the workman's insurance, and he talked about the GI Bill, and he talked about the home loans that were originally offered by the United States government. And he made it clear that all of this had language in it where it made it clear that they were not looking to give loans to people that they didn't look like them. And it was constructed that way, and it's still that way, although they make adjustments now. But it was created that way. Is there ever going to be a reality for people that look like you and I with the full body tattoo? That are we ever gonna achieve economic, solvency, and are we ever gonna be able to really be at the same level that our European or lighter complected counterpart is?
You're asking my opinion?
Yeah, your opinion.
You know what? Can I jump in with what I really want to tell you? Here, let's start here.
Why don't you tell us what you really want to tell us?
Okay. One thing was this: I first came to college. I did all right in school, pushed hard, had good grades. And, you take those little aptitude tests in college, and they said, medicine was for you. And I wanted to be a doctor. So I came to school to become a doctor. Now, you come to school, you have to take the basics of science. And the first chemistry class I ever took, if anybody's been to school, high school, was held in an auditorium. That many people. Now, true story. We were coming into the auditorium, and the professor's at the front, and he has 2 stacks of paper. And he says, everybody come up here and take one of these papers and go to your seat. So everybody, I got my piece of paper. It's maybe 200-300 people in the auditorium. I don't know how many, but I go up and I sit down and turn it over. It's an application for truck driving school. I'm like, what in the world? And the guy next to me has an application for McDonald's. So everybody's kind of talking amongst themselves, looking at their papers. Hold up. The professor said, everybody got their papers? Yeah. All right, have a seat. Now, before I want you to fill out that application. Everybody has an application. Because all y'all ain't going to be doctors.
Wow.
Just like that. Truthfully.
Yeah.
3 weeks into it, by the first test, that half them people were gone.
Gone.
Am I telling the truth, Heleese? You've been to school. By the first quarter, wasn't a third of us left. That's chemistry 101. So just think about it. All those dreams, all those ideals, the houses, the Porsches, the vacations, that that romantic ideal of being a doctor that we had. Not that we didn't want to help and change the world, but that dream, man, you can't get through chemistry 101.
Right.
So number one, there is a hierarchy. There's a mountain, and all y'all can't stand on it.
Right.
That was irregardless of color.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, went back to school. I said finance thing. I want to understand money. First class, first business day of finance. We sit in the class, and the professor sits down. He says, here, I'm here to tell you the first thing. What is the number one goal of America? What is the number one goal of a firm? Here was the number one goal of a firm is not to make employees happy, not to provide employment, not even to make a profit. The number one goal as a firm is to maximize stockholder wealth. We make the people who own the company wealthier. Let's build it up. Number one, there's a hierarchy, there's a mountain, and everybody can't sit on it. Y'all ain't gonna be there. Number two, the system is set up for those that are on the mountain already to stay on the mountain. Number three, I wanted to go to graduate school. Through all these lives, and I want to help people.
Okay.
Ran into a friend, she says social work. Now I went to Howard. I had been into the school of social work one time in my life, and I think that was to use the restroom.
There you
Nothing
go.
of it. Went, applied, accepted. Oh wow, this is powerful. Change our people. First class. Sit down, instructor comes and says, I want to tell you all something. First and foremost, I'm gonna blow your mind. She said, I want you to understand that welfare is not a system for helping people. It is a system of controlling people. Boom. So 3 bomb drops through education in my life have brought me to this theory. Number one, there is a mountain, there's a hierarchy. You all can't be on it. Number two, the system is set up for the wealthy. And number three, the system is set up for the wealthy to control the rest of us so that they can stay on the mountain. Does that make sense? 1, 2, 3. So to answer your question, can it be? Yes, it can be equality, but we first got to realize and know how to play the game.
Got to. Heleese, you just come out of school a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, right?
Yes.
Do you remember, I guess 7 years ago now, do you remember those first classes when that teacher dropped that bomb on you?
I didn't really have those type of pivotal moments in the beginning of my classes. It was more so correlating the things that I learned in school to the things I was seeing outside of school, and then realizing like even with public relations, it's a very broad field, and not to bash anyone in that field, but in certain aspects they are media manipulators. They do present things in a certain way. Right. So even just having that understanding from what I've seen outside of school and relating it to what I learned in school, it just makes you look at things like, wow, it's interesting.
So when you go off to school, I know when I was going to school so that I could create a better future for myself and my family. When I went off to school, I remember one of the things that I was looking to do was find a wife. So that was one of the things. I was going to find a wife. I was going to, give myself a foundation. And the foundation and education was going to set me up so that I would have greater options. And that was my thought process. And, I believed at that time, although I can't say I was fully caught up on the American dream, I believed that if I did this right, I could come out of here and, make a difference in my life and my quality of life. From the mind of a 19, 18, 20-year-old person, so you're not looking at it in the rearview mirror. You're looking at it forward, and you're thinking, oh, yeah, I can do this. And, and that's why we went to school. Wayne is not, you were at, was that Prairie View High School? Was that? When you left.
Man, that's a big shout out from my school. Never heard that place.
Right.
Academy.
Yes.
Remember that word.
Yes.
That throws it. Academy.
But you got, you went to school to make a difference in your life, I guess maybe at some level in the lives of those who you thought you might touch.
Well, Baruch, Dr. Baruch, just 1 second. Let's step back. Did we really go to school? Let's keep it honest. I went to school because my mom was going to kill me if I didn't, right? That old school, right?
School was just like the stepping stone, because you don't know what you want to do after high school. School for me was more life experience than like school. experience. It was
Really?
like how you learn how to interact with people or deal with situations, or like I still don't know what I want to do after having graduated undergrad school.
Well, see, now you know. Well, that's interesting that you kind of put it that way, because for us, here's another story. I am the first black male on either side of my family to graduate from college.
Wow.
Now, how long have we been free since the Emancipation Proclamation? But yet and still, I'm the first male.
Wow.
So it was that legacy of push, if you're of our generation. It was you went to school, it was you, man, look, we couldn't, so you're going to.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of died. That's a big part of it. That's kind of died. This push for, oh, you don't need education. That may be true, but yet and still, I call education a key. It's not necessarily a golden key to open the door, but it's a rock that you can drop when they go to slam the door. Get that? They can't slam it on your. Well, you know what? Dr. Baruch, we enjoyed your but just if you were a little more qualified. You know what I mean? If you we're looking for someone with a little more. And how many people are listening to us today on this radio show are working a job with some idiot as your manager that you know good and well, right? Can barely, how in the world? Because they got a piece of paper. Yeah. So that ceiling again, what I learned, finance school, it's all again 1, 2, 3. It's this ceiling. So for us to learn how to play the game, if you saw some big guy coming out to the basketball court, 7'1", lean muscle, headband, armbands, with a basketball on his arm, man, I want him on my team. That dude's a baller, right?
Yeah.
And the dude, sits down, starts stretching, woo-wee, hops up to the top of the backboard, and then pulls out some jacks. Anybody want to play jacks? Right?
Right.
We got to learn to play. Man, this is basketball. This ain't jacks. All that potential going to waste. And school education, what Dr. Baruch said, actually, what happened to the natural innate ability, he and I were talking today about natural selection, to want to do better for yourself.
Right.
Where's that gone? You talked about doing better for your family.
Right.
Remember, our parents told us, you got to do better than I did.
Yep.
It's got to be more. You got to work twice as hard to have half as much, but I want you to go twice as far.
Sure.
What happened to that? We're that dying. We got to revive that. We've got to want to push especially you and I talked the same thing in a minute. Our progeny, our young people, our youth.
Yeah, most definitely.
But how do we push our youth, and how do we push our progeny when we look in the mirror and we see what we see? When we look at what we're at ourselves, we look at somebody who is it's not even a second class citizen. We're closer to probably a 10th class citizen, because you look at animal rights are more important than our rights in the United States of America. So we can't do the second class citizen anymore. So we're looking at now, how does a person pull themselves out of the muck and mire of the continual bashing and oppression that we have to experience every single day? And we do it on a physical level. Sure, there are things that people do to us. There are things, when you're in a when you're walking through a grocery store, you're walking through a department store, you're more likely to be tracked by the camera or by the security guy or by the sales rep who's in there who looks like, she's just being fair and she's just asking you, is there anything I can help you with? When you know the deal, you just want to see whether when I'm putting anything in my pocket, and then you deal with the psychological. Well, you got that psychological before you even go in the store. This is what you're going to be dealing with. This is our reality. When you're walking down the street, that people switch their pocketbooks. That when you're in an elevator, sometimes people get off. It's all these dynamics are on us and making us feel not the best about ourselves. How do you perceive or project us climbing out of this paradigm that is being perpetuated by the system, because the system seemingly doesn't ever want you to wake up?
Yeah, that's what it is.
So how do we do it? What is it that we need to engage in order to move forward this process of recovery? Because there was a time when we were. We were once, kings and queens. We were once, the greatest people on the planet. How do we now recover that? Brother Wayne.
We have an interesting panel here, and I actually want Heleese to maybe speak first to that, because, see, I didn't know Heleese was going to be here, but it's just so perfect. We have a young woman, maturing men. We ain't old. We're not going to be old. Us maturing men, right? And so from that generation to the next, but I'll stand corrected. No, we will always be the greatest people on the face of the earth. You know, a diamond is a diamond.
I'll take that.
Right?
I'll take that.
But the setting makes a difference, don't it?
Yep.
Right? The setting makes a difference. And that's what we're going to do. We got to identify who we are, who we should be. And that's, you know, to quote Malcolm, that's a human rights thing. I'm not so much about color, really. I'm about bringing people up. But getting back to what you said, what do you think, Heleese? What do you think a solution? I'm sure you thought of one. I just know already in your consciousness. What do you think a solution might be?
It's hard to define an exact solution, but I know it definitely has to do with educating, because within our school systems or even movies that they show, it's always just about slavery. Like, know where you came from. You came from slavery. But like Dr. Baruch said, we didn't just come from slavery. We've been kings and queens before we were slaves. So just being able to teach our youth and give them an understanding of why we're being attacked is because we're so powerful. You know, not to compare us to like Jesus Christ, but Jesus was hated. And we're hated too, because we overcome so many things. We create so many things. We are the inventors of many things. We're a powerful being. So that's why not everyone, but that's why we're targeted, you know, because if we were to understand that power, we would be very much so feared. So that's why in the TV shows you see Love and Hip Hop, or, you know, the movies are about slavery, or we're perpetrated a certain way. We start to believe this thing about ourselves, and we definitely have to educate ourselves. And then on top of that, you know, it's hard because we're fighting for justice in a system that's not meant for us to succeed. So it's like, how do we create our own system, really? How do we become more of a community and support within ourselves? Because we're screaming Black Lives Matter to, you know, a system that doesn't feel that way. So it's kind of like we're asking for justice where it's not meant for us to have it.
Amen.
So it's tricky to have an exact solution.
If I could answer, because I knew you were going to say it, and Dr. Baruch and I mentioned it. If I could give one piece of advice, turn off all media.
No, that's...
I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Turn off the TV. Get rid of the iPod. Because you said education. And if we look now as to what's educating again, it's not color, it's culture. I'll use an example. Family Feud was on. I don't watch TV a lot, but Family Feud is something kind of cool to listen to if you're walking around. The question was, 100 married women were surveyed. What would you want your husband to stop looking at the most? First question was breasts. Number 2 answer. One of the panelists said butts. Number 4 answer. What was the number 1 answer? Computer. Isn't that deep?
My dad said that media are weapons of mass distraction.
The television.
That's so true.
And they have taken us, people, and so, see, he and I, maybe, I'm just guessing, might be of the same era.
Right.
I remember black and white television.
Oh, yeah.
I remember 3 channels that went off at
That's right. Right after Benny Hill.
This is a test. We have seen, and understand you all, this is why education is important, to read, to learn, to see what's going on around you and understand the part. We have seen in 40 years, if evolution is correct, if you believe that it's millions of years for man to come up out the swamp and to get to the point of being where he can, you know, light a fire and launch a rocket. In 40 years, a small group has learned to control the masses and never even touch them. All I got to do is put it on TV. All I got to do is feed it to them. All I got to do is feed it to them. And we are, so I see that as the biggest problem is what we let, not education, because we're all being educated. And that's what Dr. Baruch and I talked about the other day we were talking. It's the difference between modeling and conditioning.
Yeah.
Conditioning is something that's done, you train with positive and negative reinforcement. the study of Pavlov's dog.
Right.
When the bell rang, the food would come, he would salivate. You see, that was something. Modeling is what happens from the beginning. If we, to walk around and now see babies pushed in strollers holding iPads. Anything wrong with iPad? No, not at all. In every car you buy, there's screens. Everywhere you go, there's screens. There's screens. There's screens. Who's raising us?
Right.
The screen.
Yep. Yeah.
And on and on and on. And so how are we going to get any people of any color, anywhere, to walk this way when everything they've known? So you take a child that's 9 years old that's uses a lot of profanity. Man, stop cuss. What you mean? I cussed?
Right.
I didn't even realize it. They modeled. That's what they've heard. That's what they've seen. That's what they've done. Why are we to call a young woman out of her name the B word? Now, that used to be the fight. Now, how do we get her to stop calling herself the B word?
Right.
Referring to ourselves as B's. Because
Right.
everything I listen to
Calls me one.
Yeah.
this is see, we came up in the rap age, right or wrong. And
Yeah.
now I've been looking at some interesting videos this week, just on Facebook, one, and it sent you to others, while the old school rappers calling out these new school dudes.
Right.
And it's like, it was 3-hour watch where they set them up. They brought them into the studio. Said, we're just going to play a rhythm. Let's see if you can freestyle. And they can't. It was like dissing them. I think one was Young Thug. I don't even know who Young Thug is.
Right.
But he just, man, put on another clip. This ain't fair. You ain't a rapper. And it's Hennigan. They ain't even using words anymore.
Right.
Make up words.
Well, let's write down a line of profanity and let's see if we can get a beat to make it fit.
That's it.
If you take, like some a dude from another country said once, America is known as the land of 3 liquids: blood, right? What did he say? He said blood, I think it was sweat, and semen. If you take those 3 things out of violence, sex, and then this whole thing of getting ahead of fighting, America will fall on its face. If you took sex and violence, what would that, what would the whole industry stand? You're right, TV. So we could go on and on with that, but I do know. I don't feel it. I know it. And I'll go to a kindergarten class of any kindergarten school around here, within 20 miles of here, that's where we would prove it. To go in and ask them, man, to work in schools and educational settings where 70% of the students there are considered learning disabled. Look, don't tell me you learn disabled and you memorized the whole album the first day it came out.
Right.
He ain't learning disabled.
Right.
He's unmotivated. He's enabled. The record's raising him rather than the parent. And by the time now you get him at 15, man, why you police always mess with me? What? I don't want to take y'all got to talk too, but this whole thing about the police and us,
we got to get you a show, brother.
Man, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But this whole thing about the police and us is blowing me up. Honestly, I've been pulled over 4 times, and every 2 months I get pulled over.
Yeah.
No
I got
tickets?
pulled over because one of my tag lights was out. Not the back lights, but one of the tag lights was out. I said, oh yeah, that's how this is going to start. This is going to start with my tag light. So I just happened to be, and I don't say this because I use it unfairly, but I happen to be a father of a police officer. So I have a badge, and I can then show that badge as it's the father's badge. And it was very interesting how the whole conversation shifted from, I felt like she was about to drag me out the car. She was about to have this rough conversation with me. And all of that shifted to the point where it was now like, sir, have a great evening and please travel safe.
Wow.
Why not?
And I was like, wow, that's what and I was like, wow, this is a great little tool here.
Keep my badge.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And it definitely worked. And I've seen it work 3 times now. And makes it in different jurisdictions, not just in Maryland and D.C., but I've seen it work. So I know there's some code there that they have some respect for. But for those that don't have that, you just got to do your own thing, and you happen to have, this darker complected hue. It's, you never know what it's going to be like. Because that's what my thought was. That's like, wow, is this my day? Was my number called? Am I about to check out of here behind whatever this person is about to bring towards me?
But Dr. Baruch, why would you think that? Look, honest, I want to hear if you got lights behind you, pulled over, person in a uniform, why did you honestly think? What do you think?
Because I look at television. and I look at the news, and I'm looking at the Facebook posts, and I'm looking at the YouTube videos that are out there of what's happening. I try not to look at them because I realize they heavily influence me.
They do.
Right.
But I look at them and I'm like, whoa.
Does it make you question why these things are pushed so heavily? Because these are things that have been happening forever. But more recently, you see all the Facebook videos and these stories about police brutality in the news. It almost makes you question what's the behind-the-scenes agenda for why this is being pushed so heavily now. Because it is becoming the news is like a big fear tactic. They want you to be scared of each other, scared of your neighbors, scared of the police. And that's why I like how you put the emphasis on lives matter, because yes, Black lives matter, and blue lives matter too.
Correct.
All lives matter. Not all Black people are the same. Not all police officers are the same. But now it's become this war between Black people and the cops, when that's not going to solve anything. But it's almost like the news helps to push this war, like to fuel it almost.
Oh, yeah.
Well, watch this. I predict it. You're going to see laws change. And just yesterday, some city in the South, city council passed a law called Blue Lives Matter for police. See, if it's on TV, that prepares the public for what's going to happen. Here, let me throw out something for you. In my experience of getting pulled over, I'm going to give you some words that's going to help you if you ever get pulled over. This is what I use every time. Officer comes to the door. My best friends, literally, some dudes I consider my brothers and sisters, I can walk in their house without knocking, are police officers. Knew before they're police officers. Good people, great people. They're human beings.
Yep.
And we share this one thing. We say that I'm going home to my family tonight. Now, that's a human right, is it not? That's nothing to do with color. I want to go home tonight.
Right.
I'll give you another hint. Most police officers don't like doing paperwork. Remember that also. Just to pull that weapon out, it's a mountain of paperwork, and he'd rather be doing something else.
Right.
So this whole thing, that's what's getting us. Do you see it, you all, of taking out the human side? See, they saw that. We can put colors on things. We can put, back in the olden days of Bloods and Crips, you don't wear blue in the wrong neighborhood. Why? I don't care who you are. You just don't wear blue. Right. See, that was the colorization. That was kind of a study. I honestly believe that gangs and that stuff was a study of socialism, how we can people against people. Okay, let's talk about it. Police officer walks up to the car, first words out of my mouth, hello, officer, how was your day? I'm going to ask him a question. I'm going to be concerned about him, and he's going to answer.
Right.
That's a human need to, well, now that you mention it, I might be having a bad. His wife could have smacked him this morning, sent him out the door, not give him none. The bills are due. His kids was fussing. He's a human being too. So we take these people that are on edge, that are already on a trigger, and look, there are thousands of videos that get submitted to America's Family Video. There's thousands of videos that get sent to news stations every day. Why are these the one played? Officer, how was your day today? I'm gonna tell you right now, officer, you are getting no trouble out of me.
Right. Right.
But I also have to exude that, because ain't gonna be no trouble.
Right.
You don't look to my car, man. You can find a brick of marijuana if you want to. You'll never make it stick, because you ain't gonna ever find somebody ever say you seen one hands with some. Yep. That's the part of the game. That's the part of education. But if you have a warrant, right? If you've already been a part of the system, so this whole thing about so where that comes from is what I say first. I want to live. I'm going home this evening, and I'm not taking a butt kicking.
That's it.
What did Richard Pryor say years ago? They don't shoot cars, right? They shoot me, right? And they have the ability on that radio to call a whole lot more people with guns and sticks. You are not going to win this fight. Why would I start beefing with this dude in the first place? I want to live. I am not going to get hit. I'm not going to get struck. I'm not going to do anything that takes me away. Write me on a ticket, please. That's the worst you can do is give me a piece of paper? Write all day.
Right.
But I'm going home and you going home. So why don't we talk about it? Officer walked up to my door. One of them said, I'm writing you a ticket. Dr. Baruch, he left. We having a conversation. Cool. I got pulled over on the other side of town. No driver's license. No registration. Wrong as speeding by a officer of a different tattoo. Man, dude, same thing. No problem. Had a whistle around my neck. I was rushing, coaching. He goes, man, we just talking. Man, I'm trying to get to a track meet. I'm running late. Do you know? Man, Man, dude was going to give me an escort to the track meet. No tickets, no nothing. Told him the truth. I lost my wallet. I haven't got these things. I'm over here just talking. Mm-hmm. But he comes to the door, and black tinted out windows. He comes to the window, prepared. He's not prepared to fight a black man. I don't know if I'm black yet. He's prepared to protect himself and make sure he goes home tonight. And I cannot fault him for that, because I will do the same. If I snuck into your house and held a pillow over your face at night, what are you going to do? Fight, aren't you, Heleese?
Myself, yeah.
What's the first law of nature? Self-preservation.
That's it.
So if we start treating each other, and that's what I think is a part of it too, the lives matter. That's what we came to talk about. But the interesting thing is, if you take out the lives matter, life is life. Black lives matter, no, life matters.
Yeah.
We have to decide, as a people, us, each group for themselves, that we want to live and not die. The opposite of life is death. I don't like that option. I don't want the death option. And sickness is just a prolonged death.
Right.
That's what Dr. Baruch and I are really talking about.
Yeah.
People are accepting sickness as life, and it's not.
Right.
Life is, why is Viagra the number one drug sold to men in America, irregardless of color? Yeah, you want to live, don't you? You don't like this situation, do you?
Right.
I want to do something about it. What? First and foremost, we need, that's the word I'm just going to keep hitting on. That's the word I came to give you all. Life. I want to live. And if I value life, that changes the whole perspective and paradigm.
But the valuing of life has to be a part of everything that you do, because it's like the weakest link. If you have a weak link and you know, maybe your issue is, let's use a bad example. Maybe your issue is drugs, and clearly you know that what you're doing is not contributing to bettering your quality of life or improving your life or your health. That being the case, then when you have that one link, when you have that one piece that is failed on you, that becomes the area that it gets targeted. So you find that this individual, you know, it's all day long, they're fighting, they're toiling they're trying to figure out how to overcome that one thing that they just can't seem to overcome. And there's so many of us that are afflicted by so many different things, because there's so many traps that have been laid for us. There's the gender trap. I just can't help but want to be with every woman that's on the planet, or a woman saying the same thing about a man. And then there's it might be the violence trap. I can sit there and look at my phone all day long at people getting beat up on YouTube. I could just do this. It's adrenaline, and then I want to go out and do it myself. So I do it myself and get my friends to record it and hope that I win. And then there's the trap of, my life is hard, man. It's hard. So as a result of it being hard, I want some peace. I want some joy out of life. So for many of us, that peace and that joy, comes in the form of food. And now we're consuming food that we know is not good for us, but it makes our tongue feel good. And if our tongue feels good, it kind of makes us feel good, because it releases the serotonin, and we start smiling and, oh, man, how good that ice cream tasted. Wow, I need some more. So you have all of these angles that are under attack. We're not given the education that we know we should be given. We're not being given the education the way we should be given it, so that we can learn it the best. We're not being tested like we should, because the test is not written for us. It's written for somebody else. In fact, it may even be written so that we don't do well on it.
Right.
And and that's the case everywhere. It's like we're running up against this over and over again. At what point in time do we start having the conversation that this might be Egypt? This might be Egypt, and it might be time for us to exit. Because we could do this for another 50, 100, 500 years, trying to fight against a system, a people, a person who doesn't want to give up power. He doesn't want to give up this power. We could continue to fight this, or we could go to some fertile soil where there's no obstacles, no inhibitors, no constant being barraged with just stuff to keep us down. You know, it might be that we need to start that. You know, we need to start that pilot project. Let's send 10 families somewhere and say, you know, you all set up, and we're going to provide you with support on the front end, and then see how this thing works. And what we're going to make sure is that everything that we've identified as a problem doesn't get in. So television and radio and your cell phone internet capability, that doesn't get in. You know, if you the culture of America, we take these people and we redefine them. We give them a culture that they would then embrace. And after 2 or 3 years of then culturalizing them and now introducing them to a culture, probably one that their ancestors experienced or were engaged in, you know, you start creating something new. But I just don't see, with so much negative ingredient here in the boundaries of the United States in particular, right. I don't see us pulling ourselves out of this within the next, you know, couple generations. And then why toil if we don't have to? You know, at some point it's like, why argue with a fool? You know, why continue to fight up against this wickedness when we don't have to? An airline ticket can get you away from this. And I've been places where I've been like, wait a minute, this is how y'all live? You know, this is you know, this is what you eat? And this is how good life is for you. I'm like, man, I need to. I'm coming from America, and they're looking at me because they've been conditioned
to believe that you got it.
Yeah, and they want what I got, and I'm like, no.
Okay, that's.
Is Exodus?
That's deep,
is Exodus the? Is
I'm on an exit plan, Dr. Baruch.
Okay,
and you're not talking about that, but a different kind of exit plan.
Come on.
Now, in the cycle of life, though, where would you jump in? Would you want to move a 40-year-old, a 30-year-old, an 8-year-old? An infant? Because in the study of sociology, psychology, the study of people, see, there's a thing, if you see it on TV, it's late news, old technology. People have been studied. Therefore, the system I talked about earlier, the hierarchy, to keep those in power, they got this thing down, y'all. I was raised, I want to write a book. One book I need to write, get these others done. It's called The Farm. And if you're from, the smartest person on the face of the earth to me is a person raised on a farm. That's where I got this theory of life. Okay. I can remember on a farm you learn the difference from life and death. Literally. Literally. This means life, this means death. And for me, it was a baby chicken. I don't even remember how old I was. 3 or 4. My dad placed a baby chicken in my hand and I squeezed it a little too tight. And if you've ever held a baby chicken, they really just mush. The bones aren't soft. And I squeezed it too tight, and the chicken was messed up. I held life and death in my hand. I'll never forget that. I have seen every animal born you could probably think of, you know. So for that, life, and I've had to bury animals and then people. So this life of death balance. To understand that, I understand by a seed going in the ground, water, sunlight, does what? Germinates life, and from that can become your food. Where do you take a person now? Man, I don't be out there in that hot sun talking about pulling no weeds.
Right.
What? I'm gonna be eating all them greens, man. I got to have me some barbecue, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, man, we have got, and Dr. Baruch and I said, here's one came the other day. How are we going to have a revolution? Depending on the benevolence of the oppressor.
Right.
Where are you going to get your groceries from?
Right.
It's biblical, and the Bible gives us great ways to keep an. I ain't got to shoot an arrow, never fire a bullet. I'm just going to surround the city, cut off the supplies coming in. No more Safeway, no more giant trucks, right? In a little while, when they get hungry, we got them.
Right.
Detroit was a test. Let's see if we do something to the water. What's going to really happen? Now they're saying they're going to they indicted 6 dudes, saying 6 dudes was the problem, all that stuff. And now children who've had too much lead, we don't even know what the down the line ramifications are going to be. But water, fresh water. You can go longer without food. You can go without water.
Right.
You can't go a week without water. So you see what I'm saying? We have to have a get out plan, but we got a plan to get out.
Right.
We got to be willing. We have to be willing to, and if it's not another country, because I love travel, and here, quite often and all the time, to go places and just different cultures. Again, it's not color, it's culture.
Okay.
Just minutes from here, where you don't see all that, where kids are outside playing.
Right.
where people are out, man. Look, you want to see a cultural balance. Go to a race. Just look up, and wherever you are, Google 5K, 10K race, and go to one, and see who's there. You'll see these people, but the ability they have to run 10 miles or 6 miles, whatever the case is, but you'll see them sipping on carrot juice and, you know, a lot of water packs and healthy and stretching and all that. Why? Because they want to live. Now, here's the thing that gets you about that, though. How many of them pushing strollers? That child came up in a stroller running. That child came up in a stroller knowing what it's like to have wind go past his face and the thrill of that.
Right.
That child came up moving versus sitting. Am I tying it together?
Oh, yeah.
Baruch?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
do we start getting out? We got to be able to want to move. We got to understand that we got to eat. We got to understand that where our food comes from, where our water comes from. That's education having nothing to do with color. Black man, white man, red man, we all need water.
Right. And the conditioning here is so heavy because it's coming from so many different outlets at one time.
All areas.
Because you're told, all right, you go to school so you could get a degree so you could get a good job. And then you might get your government job or whatever, but then you're not happy with your job. So then on the weekends, you want to take a break from your job. You take a break from your job by poisoning yourself and partying, having liquor. And then, you know, you're hungry, you're rushing all the time. You need something to eat. You don't have time to have a garden. So, you know, McDonald's, these commercials look so great. I'm just going to buy something quick from McDonald's. Like, every little thing is pitted against you. And then it even ties into the social media, like you said. Instagram, you post a picture, you get likes. That's instant gratification. So I want money so I could be rich like the people I see on TV. What's an instant way to do that? Let me rob somebody. What's an instant way for me to get food? Let me go get fast food. Like everything, Dr. Baruch said that as well, like microwave society.
Microwave society, right?
Yeah, so it's like so many, and it's funny because people will make fun of a healthier lifestyle. People bash me because I'm vegan.
Yes, all the
when
time.
I don't say anything about
You're right, what you mean, right?
their food choices, but just because I decide that I want to eat something differently, now all of a sudden I think I'm better than you, or I only eat bird food, or
And why is that I'm better than you? Why does it have to become a hierarchical?
It's the conditioning. People.
If you want to better yourself, you're wrong for that.
Yeah,
Right.
which is crazy because I guess if people don't see themselves doing it, then they have something negative to say about you doing it.
You know what I think it is? I think they know they should be doing it too. and by seeing the power, right, that you're able to, makes me feel right guilty about my own inability to do what I'm supposed to do. And then I'm like, well, I'm just gonna bash you rather than lift you up. But you know what? If you continue with that conversation, they really want to know what you do and how you do. They want to know about your strength, don't they, Dr. Baruch? Would you say that? Most people who've never heard about, I have told more people about everlasting life. That's how we talked to I was bringing someone here.
Yeah.
Come on, man, let's try this. Why? You ask me what I eat food, man.
Yeah.
That's what I eat, food, just like you eat food. Well, you don't know, if you can't cook it, let me go at least show you a place where you can get. Everybody likes macaroni and cheese. Dr. Baruch's macaroni and cheese is world renowned now. He should be shipping it around the world to people. People come in and go, man, it's not like regular, but that was good. I could eat some of that. There you go.
And it's not even to say that my lifestyle I've chosen is perfect or I'm perfect.
Correct.
I'll still have liquor or do things, but at least there's a certain level of awareness as to what I'm putting into my body. Most people don't even want to know.
No.
Don't show me the video about how the animals are killed because I don't want to see it because I still want to eat it. What? You don't want to know what you're putting in your body? Like you're not curious to know what's fueling your system.
But that's what he said. So how we can get those people out? If you ain't got to kill a chicken, how you gonna eat it?
Right.
You ever seen a whole lot of one-legged chickens hopping around, are they?
Right.
You gotta kill it.
That's it.
And killing it, most people, I tell you all the time, you be a vegetarian if you have to kill your own food.
Yeah.
Because you ain't got the stomach for it. Oh man, we from the country. You grab them by the head, twist them too tight, pull the head off with your hand, throw it in a bucket. They, my people be running, throwing. Well, where you think nuggets come from?
Right. Right. Well,
So that's the education we need to get.
Yeah.
We definitely need to get that, and I want to jump off because I want to take a break just so that we can set up and bring our additional guest into this conversation, which is going to be a great addition because like you, Brother Wayne, like you, Heleese, she is she's coming with some content and some experience and passion and compassion. So we're going to take a momentary break. We're going to be right back with more of the Not on My Watch show. You all stay tuned. We're going to be right back in just a minute. We're just making it all work out. Hold on. We're back. So you got a chance to see how we do all of this, right? You know, it's not rocket science. It just happens because we all want to make it happen. We're all excited. You saw we got a new person in the studio, and we're talking about life, and we're talking about not just the concept of Black Lives Matter. Obviously, you know, when something gets promoted in the news, you know, we probably didn't create it, especially when it gets overwhelmingly promoted like we see. So we probably didn't create this. As a matter of fact, I was told somebody by the name of Soros had something to do with funding the whole concept Black Lives Matter. So, but we're having a conversation, and we've introduced yet a new spirit, a new energy, because we're spirits on a human journey, right? She just happens to look beautiful and as a woman. And so we've got Miss Phyllis Hathaway. Good afternoon or good morning or good afternoon, Phyllis. How are you today? Great. And thank you for coming on board with us. And I just want you to talk to us about who you are so that, you know, we get an idea of your background and what's going on with you as we put this together and we build this conversation. We're building a conversation around lives matter, or Black Lives Matter, or Blue Lives Matter, or nobody's life matters, or what, you know. And I want you, because of the work that I know that you are doing, have done, want to do, I want to hear your perspective. So before we jump into that, I'd like for you to tell us, who is Phyllis Hathaway?
Country girl, and I know all about the chickens and all that other stuff because I used to do that in the summers at my mom Odell's. So I know all about that, and it's not pretty. And basically, I'm from Harford County, Maryland. I went to Morgan State University. I am a cybersecurity analyst, and I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 2 grown sons that right now I'm terrified. Every time that phone rings after a certain time at night, and that's their numbers, yep, I'm terrified. Yep. And I don't like being like that. Mm-hmm. I don't like feeling like that, and it's a problem. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is try to get into the community. I'm tired of protests. I'm sorry, some people may be offended by what I'm about to say, but I'm tired of protests. I'm tired of marches. I'm tired of singing "We Shall Overcome" and town hall meetings because they don't work. Town hall meetings, they only incite just a lot of drama and nothing gets done. And I've talked to friends of mine who are policemen in large cities, and they said the protests and marches, you have to be careful because I'm sorry, anarchists are posted up, waiting to cause, wreak havoc, and then make it look like it's the protesters. So we have to get away from that. And basically what I want to try to do is I've started a Get in Action movement where we're trying to meet with the Governor Hogan and the governors of different states, and I'm trying to mobilize this in other states, and I'm talking to people in other states, and we're doing this, and we're trying to get meetings, like at least maybe a half a dozen, keep it in small groups to meet with these governors and these police commissioners and these police chiefs to sit down behind closed doors, no cameras, and say, this is what we need in our community. This is what we need. We don't need scary cops who are afraid of us because of our color, don't know anything about us. We need people who look like us in our community. Because when I grew up, I don't know about how you grew up in your communities, the policemen, we knew them. And I remember we would take our report cards home to our parents, and then we take it out to the policeman who was on our beat in our neighborhood because he wanted to see our grades too. So we had a relationship on hot days. I can remember parents going out giving them lemonade and things like that. No one was afraid. We trusted. But now this is a problem. So that's who I am, and that's what my passion. I get all excited.
We have met somewhere. It might be a video or whatever the case might be. And we you know, before you came, we were speaking about that, about this thing with police and why we would probably agree that it's not nothing new. It's been happening. It's just these phones we have with cameras on them are making it a little more active. Then we talked about, is there a conspiracy theory? Why is it so pressed to us now? to say that you fear, and maybe before I said Dr. Baruch and I share, we both get pulled over a lot. At least I know I do.
Right.
You know, I don't fear. For me, maybe, or for mine, at all, and never discuss problems without discussing solutions. That's why I'm glad to hear what you said. So let's take this part and say about solutions. And you said, from what you said, I'm saying two things. We have our social group methodologies, but there's also an individual. Where we left off earlier was this. Yesterday, I know a certain place where you can go, and all day long these kids ride their bikes in the street, pull wheelies at the street. And yesterday, I just happened to be there. It was near my office, and a dump truck is turning the corner, and there's other cars, and this young person is pulling a wheelie on his bike, not motorcycle, bike in the middle of the street. And actually, the car's swerving around. I'm like, getting back to what I said about life. And I looked at that dude, we said, that dude don't value his life. Not only does he not value his life, but the community life. Because if the dump truck swerved, went up on the curb, hit somebody in their car, the dude on the bike is going to go on down the road, leaving carnage behind him.
Yes.
I went out to get that boy. Couldn't catch him, but I meant to. It takes a village. I think one thing we're going to do, let's talk about this. I call pull people up. I pull people up. If you throw a stone into a lake and you see the ripple effect, if you drop a drop of food coloring on water and see it, I'm saying that, see, if this is the best that we have to offer us in this room, if we're educated with it, why are we now letting people just go? Yo, young dude, come here, man. Can I talk to you for a minute? For real.
But here's the problem with that. We have to be careful because we grew up in neighborhoods where I can tell you, if I did something wrong, Miss Rhonda would give me a spanking. Then she called my grandmother who lived in our neighborhood. She gave me a spanking. And then when I got home, I was like, okay, enough already. But it was the entire neighborhood, and then I never did that again. The entire neighborhood looked out for each other. But now, if you say anything to your neighbor's kid, that's my kid, and you're liable for a lawsuit or a lot of drama, even a fight or whatever, because they don't want you to say anything to you. I spanked my child one time, and the lady across the street called the police. That was none of her business.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But he needed a spanking for what he did, and the thing is, it was 1, 2, 3 swats on the bottom. He was 6 years old, over the knee, and because he was disrespectful in school, and I told him to go, to the bed. So she heard him cry, and my son is such a thespian. I mean, he's rolling around, oh, Lord Jesus, don't kill me, da, da, da.
I like to thank the Academy for nominating me. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like 3 swats on the butt, not even any red marks or anything, with open hand. So she called the police. And I'm like, but why? That's none of your business. And that child wasn't being hurt.
And for that happened to you, literally.
Yeah.
So you know what you say that? Okay, you're going to go live with her now.
No.
'Cause apparently she's better able to take care of you. She's more concerned about you than I am.
I went and knocked on her door after that police left. And I said, your son runs up and down the street. He has no respect, no manners.
There you go. That's not right.
But I just look at mine, and they stop. But she has to say, no, stop, no, stop. Even when I went and talked to her, she was like, no, stop, about 20 times. So she had no control over her child, but I could just give mine a look.
Spread that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can we combine the both? One, but see, here's what got me what you said though. I'm fearing for my child being hurt outside, but I'm fearing doing something about it. Yeah, my hands are tied to take what we think would be the normal progression.
Exactly.
So
people aren't the same anymore.
Can we find? They're right. Part of it, I honestly feel, especially for young people, is we just gotta get and go back to that. I shared with Dr. Baruch. I was jogging the lake a few days ago, and I'm running around this lake, and a young couple, man and woman, come by me, and they're a little rounder, and they're smoking cigarettes and drinking sodas, walking around the lake.
Okay.
So the first time around, but what's up? So the second time around, I said, "Come on, man, do a lap with me." And the woman said, "He better not even try to run." I was like,
really?
That's what she said.
Well, you would think she would want him to.
There you go. I finished my laps and sitting on the bench. Now here it is at. Go say something to him. Don't say nothing to him. They're going to be offended.
Right.
You have that. You got to at least try. You know the difference is? Just love.
You know, I want to jump in there because while we were on break, I asked you all a question. Mm-hmm. And the question was, have you all seen the deliberate dumbing down of America? And I'm not sure whether anybody has seen it. So I think it's appropriate. It's going to take a minute for it to do its thing, but I want you all to check this out. Mm-hmm. We're going to start this rolling right now.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Maya. She was a bright, energetic young lady. Everybody thought Maya would do great things one day. Today was a special day. It was the first day of school, and Maya was looking forward to all the new things she would learn this year. But this year was not going to be exactly what Maya expected. Something was different this year. Something in school was not quite right. Maya was still learning how to read and write, and even though her homework was full of spelling mistakes, her teacher gave her a gold star. The teacher did not ask Maya to correct her spelling. Maya's mother asked the teacher why her daughter got a gold star. The teacher said that marking the spelling wrong would hurt the child's self-esteem. In the modern way of schooling, there was no right and no wrong. They now have a new way of spelling called invented spelling. She explained that the kids could spell words any way they liked. It's all correct because it's all creative. In some of the more advanced classes, they even used this method of no wrong or right in math. This way, 2 + 2 could equal 5, and no one's feelings would be hurt. Even though this seemed odd to Maya's mother, she didn't question the teacher. After all, the teacher is the professional, and surely she knows what she is doing. By the second month in school, Maya came home looking very down. She no longer was as happy as she used to be. Her mom didn't know that Maya was learning a subject called death education. All that talk about death gave Maya nightmares and made her nervous all the time. When her mom found out about death ed, it confused her. She didn't understand why young children were being taught about death. But she didn't say anything because, after all, the teacher was the professional, and surely she knows what she is doing. On the 6th week of school, Maya's mom found a test in Maya's backpack. The test was marked, "Not to be taken home." Her mom looked over the test and found questions about her personal thoughts. Do you sometimes get nervous talking in front of class? Do you ever get depressed? Do you feel like your parents are abusing you? Upon further research, Maya's mom found out that this was a psychological test given to the students without the parents' consent. The kids were offered pizza or movie tickets if they filled out all the answers. Investigating further, she found out that if the child was evaluated as high risk for depression, she would be sent to the school counselor, who would then tell the parents that the child needed medication. She also found out that most of the kids taking the test had mental problems and that they would all be asked to see the psychologist. Maya's mother was alarmed, but she let Maya see the counselor. She was worried about her little girl and felt she might need help. And after all, the counselor is a professional, and if he says Maya needs medicine, he must know what he's doing. psychologist recommended Maya be put on a drug that would cure the chemical imbalance in her brain. The fact that she was never tested for such an imbalance didn't occur to her mom. The doctor was a professional. So each day before school, Maya would line up with all the other kids who also needed medication. A day after she started taking her meds, Maya was having more nightmares and weird thoughts. She didn't look right to her mother. So they went back to the doctor, who put Maya on a different drug. Even though she went along with all this, Maya's mom was confused. How could her daughter be getting high grades but not know how to read or write or do math? And why was her little girl, who was so happy and energetic, now so quiet and sleepy all the time? The teacher was pleased. Maya no longer spoke out in class and seemed to be more focused on her work. And now, a little history. In 1879, Wilhelm Wundt, the father of psychology, decided that man had no soul. Man was just a stimulus response animal with no self-determinism. He needed to be trained like any other animal. Supply the correct stimulus, you get the correct response, just like rats or dogs. In the early 1900s, Teachers College taught teachers the new science of psychology. These new methods of teaching would devalue academics and concentrate on behavioral techniques to mold children's values. Schools would be turned into mini psych clinics. The Rockefeller Foundation backed Teachers College and new educators like Edward Lee Thorndike, James Earl Russell, and John Dewey, who were disciples of Wundt. Together they rewrote textbooks and curriculum for the new American education system. This system got away from learning to sound out words using a method called phonics. It was old and too difficult, they said. They now used a new method called look-see, or whole word. All you had to do was recognize words by the way they looked, instead of learning to sound them out. And even though reading levels took a nosedive, they continued to push these new methods. They hired professional educators that believed history and geography were unnecessary burdens on young minds. Children should concentrate more on how they feel about history rather than memorizing unnecessary facts. And most importantly, the teachers and counselors should be the ones to teach moral values to the children, not the children's own parents. Parents were not professionals. 1965. Passage of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. The number of educational psychologists in schools rise from 455 in 1969 to 16,146 in 1992. Probably just coincidentally, the number of child murderers and suicides skyrocketed as well. Certain members of the government were overjoyed with this new form of education. Controlling the behavior of people, keeping them dumb, they could pass any laws they wanted and no one would even know. Now the program was complete. Dumb them down, fill them with drugs, then indoctrinate them with facts they no longer had the power to refute. While the mental health experts were taking control of the kids away from their parents, the kids' bodies were also being poisoned, making education even harder. Fluoride, found in drinking water and hundreds of products, is actually a highly toxic industrial waste product. Fluoride is the main ingredient in sarin nerve gas used by the Nazis in World War II to make their victims docile and sterile. It's also the key dumbing down ingredient of Prozac. Here are some of the cumulative effects of fluoride. Worried about the flu? Do you know what's in the vaccine? Fact. More people die from the vaccine than die from the flu. Fact. Vaccinations have been associated with many neurological disorders. Babies are given a cocktail of vaccines before their little body's immune systems can handle it. Genetically modified foods are linked to toxic and allergic reactions, sick, sterile, and dead livestock, and damage to virtually every organ studied in lab animals. They are banned by food manufacturers in Europe and elsewhere. Yet GMOs are present in the vast majority of processed foods in the U.S. One night, after Maya finished her homework, she and her mother were watching the TV together when they saw a news report come on about another mass murder at a high school. The reporter said the boy had stopped taking his meds and that his psychiatrist said that's why he killed all those people. Here's what the reporter didn't say. Side effects of the new mind-altering drugs can cause suicide and violence. All the recent school shooters were treated with these drugs. They were all troubled boys, but none of them were murderers until after they were medicated. It was raining the day they buried Maya. Nobody could understand why a 9-year-old would want to hang herself. Things like this never happened before. It was all very confusing. The school psychologist said, if only we could have gotten to her sooner.
Whoa. Give you something to think about. And you know, there are so many other documentaries, and there's so many other strategies, and there's so many other strategists that are working on projects like these. And I just wanted to get you all's feedback. As you know, you all say you haven't seen this before. What do you think, Phyllis?
I'm just appalled because, number one, my son went through that in school. They said he's a very intelligent kid. As a matter of fact, he had super high IQ, but they said he was too vibrant. He was moved too much in class. He was bored. I kept going out there telling him, you got to challenge him, move him up a grade, move him up 2 or 3 grades, and they wouldn't. So then they wanted to put him on medication. And so I was like, no. So then I took him to another doctor outside of the school system, and the doctor said, well, he does have ADHD. So the doctor gave him the medicine, but they told me not to give him the meds at home. They told me to take it to the school and give it to him. And that way I couldn't see how he was reacting. So I said, wait a minute, let me keep a couple. And I gave him to him one Saturday. And that Saturday he was like a zombie. And then I was like, oh, heck no. That following Monday, I went out to that school. I took all that medication and I dumped it in the toilet. I said, you will not do this to my child. What I ended up doing was research. I went to the library, because Google wasn't, the thing then. I went to the library, I researched everything, and I found that there were triggers in his diet that made him act that way with my son, because it took me months to giving him things and watching his reaction. And I'd had spreadsheets where I would actually annotate his reactions to certain food. And I found out because his father, my husband, was Jamaican, so he ate a lot of spicy foods. So once I removed that spicy foods triggered him. Anything with red dye in it, Coca-Cola's, any type of caffeine, and anything like that. And once I removed all those foods from his diet, he was fine. And then I went out and told the school, this is what you need to do. You need to stop giving these meds to these kids. So what we need to do as parents, be more involved, go out to these schools, and don't let the school tell us how to raise our children. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Brother Wayne, what do you think? What's up?
Complete affirmation of what I was saying earlier. Let's go back to that pyramid. There is a top. You all ain't going to make it.
Yep.
Number 2, we have to form a system, and that's exactly what they said. There's a system that's been in place from a long time ago to control the masses. We need the masses. And that's why I was saying earlier, you know, the farm, to understand the farm mentality is there can be one farmer with 1,000 cows. How can he keep 1,000 cows in order? And then 500 pigs and 200 sheep. And you know, all of us here battling about this election coming up, and I often say, when did the chickens ever vote out the farmer? Well, Mr. Farmer, we don't like the food we're getting, so we think we voted, and it's time for you to go. We're going to run this thing now. Farmer says, yeah, right, hand me my axe. Right. I'll show you right now who is who. Is it surprising? Not at all. I can give it to you from personally and professionally. I know this was happening. I used a statistic earlier. It actually happened in the school. School professional, I worked in schools, said that we have 70%. How can that be? But let's go back. Something else. In certain neighborhoods, you also can get different benefits by having your child then labeled.
Yep.
Special.
IEPs and you get,
So why would I want my child to be labeled? Because it might be a few more dollars.
That's ridiculous.
But then it's on the child's record from elementary school going forward. And now, even to take it further, let's bring it home. When the police pulls a person over, we got Dante Johnson. They pull up Dante Johnson. Well, Dante Johnson's been a problem since 4th grade. Dante Johnson's on medication. Dante Johnson's been expelled. He's had 7 interactions with the police. Now the police officer says, I've run into a lot of Dante Johnsons. The last Dante Johnson I saw pulled a gun on me, shot at my partner, hit me in my head. I'm going to prepare for war. Red, pull my weapon. You got the wrong Dante Johnson. So, man, the system. What do you think?
Heleese, when you're the most recent graduate from the school system, you know, I don't know whether any of this sounded familiar or whether you can reflect back on it and say, oh, that's why they did that, or that's what happened to him, or so on and so forth. Why don't you talk about that, and then, you know, again, your reflections on what it is that you saw.
It definitely makes sense. That video is, man, that made my stomach hurt. Like, even though it's things that you're aware of, just like seeing it broken down to you, it makes you look at it completely differently. And just going back to even when I was in high school and having certain educators that maybe just give you a worksheet and tell you work on this worksheet, or you know, watch this video, then you'll learn how to speak Spanish just by watching this video. Like, we do have, not to say all teachers are bad, because there are teachers who are passionate about what they're doing, but we do have educators that are just in there to get a check. And it's crazy because these students are getting so quickly labeled with special needs or mental illness, or, you know, these crazy labels, when we're, as educators, people aren't taking the time to learn their students and understand their learning style. And it goes back to the microwave society. It's amazing that you did those great lengths to figure out what's wrong with your son, because some parents, like Maya's mother, will just say, well, they're the professional. I'll listen to what they have to say. And it's definitely, it just breaks down how every source that can be used to control you is used, even school. School, now we see, is meant to train you. It may not technically be meant to teach you. It's a training. So it's like, when I talk about the importance of education, you have to remember to educate yourself outside of school, because school only trained you or taught you so much. So it's just, even when it came to breaking down, it talked about the vaccines and how that's detrimental to your body. Like, everything that we've been taught to think is good for us is really just being fed to us, and we're just supposed to accept it because it's supposedly making us smarter, making us healthier, or when really it's just all a systematic control. And it's crazy to me. It's saddening.
Can I throw this in? And you're, Phyllis, you're right. To want to take that, we keep looking for solutions. Well, Dr. Baruch, true or false, panel? Do we now, as a people, have we been bought off with beads and trinkets? We don't have time to sit down with our children. Phyllis, you took the time to go do the research, didn't you?
Yeah, had to.
Here's a saying I use all the time. Mommy and Daddy work 2 jobs and work hard to give little Johnny this nice house. But we got to take a second mortgage out on the house to get Johnny therapy. And then we got to sell the house to get the lawyer to get Johnny out of jail.
Right.
What was the point?
Right.
That part of the American dream, the beads and baubles, the house, the car.
Right.
We are so after that we don't even have time to question.
But that's material. It's not even important.
Materialism.
Not even
Well, they're the
important.
professionals. We send our child to school to be educated, not even looking at that. But the professionals tell us that a child's character is set by 5. Their character is set before we even go to school. School, this whole thing about blaming teachers, no, most people go in education, go into it because they have a love for it.
Right.
She don't have time to deal with your child. She got 30.
That's your responsibility.
And she's trying to watch her back. Plus the test scores, what it's become. You all, where would we start, man? Just keep going back. I'm gonna touch it. Proponents of marijuana use, fine. But what about what it does to smoke marijuana to the fetus? Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about these things and what we do as adults. The child comes here with issues, and a lot do.
Yeah.
Forget marijuana, caffeine for that matter. What does drinking all this coffee do to a fetus? It comes here, I can't do nothing with him. Where does it begin, this vicious cycle? So has some medications been developed for a purpose? Yes. Is it necessary? And sometimes, yeah, we got to get little Johnny to sit down, not because it ain't to do with Johnny, but the other 29 kids. Because this parent is here telling me that child didn't get his work done because your child is a behavior problem. You all, I came to talk about life. It has got to be holistic. It has got to be a circle. People, whatever color they are, and we can study different cultures to kind of see the differences of what our priorities are. We cannot spend some children in before care, drop them off, in school all day, then they're in aftercare, and you wonder why. To pass on our mindset, to pass on our value system, your child needs your time.
Yeah.
Your time.
Just think about it. On an average, that scenario you just gave, we spend maybe 3 to 4 hours tops with our children a day.
With our
Because
children.
once you pick them up from school, they eat dinner, and then it's time for homework, and then it's time for bath. How much quality time did you ever? Now, back in the day, we had to sit down at dinner as a family and discuss. That's when we talk to mom and dad and what's going on in our lives. And I carried that over to my family. My boys, that they had to sit down with us at dinner. No, you're not standing over there, you're not taking food up to your room. We're going to sit here at a table. And this is where I found out what was going on at
You
school.
got the information, didn't you?
And I was like, oh, really?
You have
You
to
know?
create some sort of tradition with your family. Even if you all can't sit down and eat dinner, maybe Sundays is the day you go out bowling. Or, something to where you can have that time to know what's going on with your kids.
You know what both of you all just said? Traditions of communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not watching a movie together.
Yeah.
Got you nowhere.
Communication.
Traditions of communication, where we
Exactly.
talk, where we interact. Look, I'm gonna sit my daughter on my lap at 16. When 18, she's gonna come and talk to me, right? You got time. The thing, money is really not the biggest commodity. It's time.
It's time.
That's the thing you can't get back.
Time.
It's
Yeah,
time.
money you can always get.
You can get some money that goes and comes, but time, once it's passed, and how many parents I've had to, professionally and personally, I can't do nothing with them. Like, you're right. Because that time passed. And don't think your child, don't think children don't know if they're a priority.
Yeah.
Don't think they ain't smart enough to figure this out too.
Oh, yeah.
Man, she ain't coming up to the
crazy-
school. She ain't gonna do nothing. What you gonna do? Yeah, that whole thing.
I didn't know that because they knew I was coming.
Right. But
They get scared. Don't call my mom.
So let's talk about investing. Dr. Baruch, let's talk about investing in ourselves with the natural selection, passing on our job as people. Butt naked, if you believe in evolution, out the woods, was I got to get my child to survive. First and foremost. I got to get them to learn enough. There comes a day when Mama Bear takes Baby Bear to the woods and leaves him there. Right?
Right.
But you got, hey, hunters, what y'all doing with those guns? Right? You've got to have learned communication, time, investment in teaching. They keep talking about teaching man how to fish. People scared to go to the water. I ain't got time for no fishing. We'll just go to McDonald's and get a fillet of fish.
But the biggest problem, I think, is we have to get away from the materialism. Because think about it. When I was a kid, we didn't have a whole lot. I didn't know that we weren't rich. I thought we had it going on, but we weren't. I had my mom, my dad.
Speaking,
yeah,
right?
Comparatively,
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had my mom and my dad, and my brother and sister and I. We slept in the same room. It was a 2-bedroom house, little apartment. Until, my dad bought us a bigger house. But the thing is, we were happy because my dad and my mom, we sat down at dinner Sunday after church. Daddy used to take us on a ride to the country, and that's when we got to talk and then go through the drive-in, and he put our pajamas on us, mom and dad, and we'd sit in the drive. But we just thought we had everything because we were always with our parents. But now, now
you did. Right?
We did. But now we have this thing where we got to get them the Jordans, we got to get them this, and we're not spending the time with you. But that right there is the problem. We got to get these families, these parents, back into being with their children, talking to the children. Because I was at the Metro one day. Dr. Baruch, I don't even know if I told you this before, but I was at the Metro one day. I think it was LaPont Plaza, and got on the train, and it was about a dozen kids in their little school uniforms. They may have been about 12, 13, around that age, and they got on acting like a pack of wolves. And so everyone was clutching their purses, and they was like this, and they was like, and they was all scared and hunkered down. I was like, you know what? I'm a mother. I stood up right in the middle of all those kids, and I said, stop it right now. Just stop. And they stopped, and I said, look at how you're acting. I said, you were all born to be better than this. You were born into royalty. I said, you're all very beautiful and quite intelligent, but why are you acting like this? Because all these people that are looking at you, you're going to be the topic of their discussion at dinner tonight, talking about how you were acting like little animals and heathens. I said, but as a mother, I'm not your mother, but I'm telling you right now, behave and stop it right now. Act like the royalty that you are. And then I said, you're all beautiful. Act beautiful. Then the little girl said, am I beautiful? I said, you're the most beautiful one of them all. And you know what? Those kids said, yes, ma'am. They sat down, and I did not hear a peep out of them. When I got up to get off that Metro, those kids came around and hugged me. I was in the middle of the group, and they hugged me.
But they're probably at school getting labeled as bad students, but these bad students are brilliant. Like, I've worked in a school, and I work with first graders, and my students that were, quote unquote, the most disruptive, it was because they weren't challenged. They'll finish the worksheet in 2 seconds, and then they're ready to talk to somebody and act a fool and whatever have you. But we do have to take that time to understand our children. That video made me sad, the fact that they ended up, the girl went from being so bright and jolly to being depressed and sad, but they liked her that way. They liked her as a mute. They want to kill that creativity.
Yes, they do.
And that uniqueness.
There's something else that we need to be mindful of. You talked about the families who get money. So the families get money for their child now needing this additional drugging, this additional assistance. But do you also know that the schools get money?
Most certainly.
Yes.
So the school gets money, and now they got this extra pot of money because they want to know all of the children that are now taking this medication, because now that warrants them bringing more psychotherapists on board, that warrants them bringing more nurses on board, that warrants them having more hours for specialized education, because we've got this group, and all of that translates into money.
Everything is money.
And politics, Dr. Baruch, because people don't see, you all, a bill being passed doesn't mean anything. How is it funded? Follow the money.
Lobbyists.
Why is this school this way and that school that way? It's the money. You're absolutely right. So by percentages or numbers of children with these needs, more of that money that was earmarked for education comes over here. Who benefits? Do we even know who is the real benefit there?
Rockefellers. I'm just saying.
My dad calls it the flash and screw. So they flash this pretty shiny thing in your face, but meanwhile,
you're getting it right. Look over here, and
they're greasing you up. Yep.
basically.
Well, and I think the conversation is going in the right direction in the sense that we can identify now that there are multiple sources of problems. You can look up J.D. Rockefeller's name with the American Medical Association, the current school and education system, the financial systems, the prison system. All of this was laid out by thinkers and guys who had that agenda. And we somehow or another are living in this peacetime mentality during one of the worst wars that we have been engaged in. And I think one of the most effective pieces of the war is, well, I'll say two. One of them is our obsessive compulsive addiction to negative results. We embrace negative results as though the negative results are ours. This is our culture. We wear our pants this way. I want to show myself this way. I want to do whatever. I want to wear my hair this way. All these things that we look up. I eat the worst food. I have the worst conversation on the metro bus while I'm in there and everybody's talking, but I'm on my cell phone and I want to scream and holler and call people all kinds of names because I am the worst. I have the obsessive compulsive addiction to negative outcomes. And there's another piece in this scenario that I think we need to be mindful of, and that is we do have an enemy. I think it's fair to say that obviously, we've got an enemy, and our enemy has been so strategically intelligent that he now has programmed us with a repulse. We are repulsed by the real solution. What better way to keep a people caught up in the problem than to have them be repulsed by the solution? So when the solution is offered to you, your mind is like, that is crazy. It's like the guy who comes in and he says, Doc, I got high blood pressure, I got diabetes, I got heart disease, I got prostate cancer, I got, the list goes on, cholesterol, I got a little bit of Alzheimer's, and I've got arthritis, and I've got asthma. What is it that you would suggest that I do? Well, sir, the first thing is to start eating healthy.
What? No, I don't think so.
You want me to give a
or even that I am eating healthy. What do you mean I'm eating healthy? I eat. I don't eat any more pork, or if I do, it's only a little bit of bacon. I eat bacon, but most of the protein that I get, because we need protein, right, Doc?
Yeah, right.
So most of the protein that I eat is chicken and fish. So and of course we fry it because look at me. That's how we do what we do. And of course, when I go down that road and I tell them, I say, well, you're going to have to stop the animal flesh. You're going to have to stop consuming dead animal flesh. Doc, if that's what it's going to take for me to get healthier, then you can forget it. Now, I'm going to tell you how far this went. There's another guy who came in, and he was talking about himself, and we were talking about what was going to need to be done for him to be healthier. And he every other word was a religious expression, so he was so caught up in the religious expression. I said, okay, well, let me get on that boat with you. I said, do you anticipate going to heaven? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, brother. If anybody's going to heaven, I'm going to heaven. You better bet it. I said, okay. When you get to heaven, do you anticipate eating fried chicken? And you saw this look on his face like,
never thought about that.
Doc, you're not telling me that ain't gonna be no fried chicken in heaven, are you? I said, do you think somebody's gonna be up there slaughtering chickens and frying them up so you can eat them? And he literally went through this moment where I could see he was contemplating, well, maybe heaven,
I ain't going down.
maybe heaven ain't the right place for me then, because you ain't about to take chicken out of my mouth, But that's how repulsive it is. The solution is so repulsive, and the problem is so so attractive to us. We like the problem. The problem is ours. Go ahead.
I feel like, I know with in response to being addicted to the negativity, I feel like a lot of people have this YOLO mindset, oh, you only live once, so I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna have sex with whoever I want, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, and that's easier.
Then you live 100 years.
That's easier to do than saying you only live once, so why not have a better quality of life? You only live once, at least in this body. Life. You only live once in this form, so why not be your higher self in this form? People have and that became a thing, it's in music, YOLO, we gonna do these drugs, whatever, but it really just, it doesn't make sense, but it's an easier route. You know, it's easier than accepting responsibility for your actions. It's easier than identifying with spirituality or, you know, recognizing what's right or what's wrong. It's easier to just say, well, since I only live once, I'm going to eat what I want, I'm going to do what I want, I'm going to sleep with who I want. Like, and I think that's where the addiction to the negativity comes into play.
Where did YOLO come from?
Right.
Where did YOLO?
Right.
Okay, Dr. Brooke, that was the conversation.
I didn't even know what it was. I had to look it up because somebody wrote it one day. I was like, "What's that?" YOLO. I had to Google it.
Every time we say this word live, see, I'm changing it. Every time we say this word live, put on some brakes. Let's talk about life. Okay, here's the scenario. We've all seen a horror movie, right? Some people, you know, the moon coming through the clouds, and you go, and it's an old creepy house.
Right.
Come upon, right? with the paint peeling off and the shutters and one light on upstairs, right? And then it's a group of young people in there, and they're going on, well, I don't know, maybe we should go. Oh, come on, let's go. You get close, and there's blood just flowing out from under the door. You know what I'm saying? And you knock on the door, and the door swings open. There's a big dude and some coveralls. You hear a chainsaw start up, and the dude comes to the door with a mask on. Young people say, "Oh, what the hell? You only gonna live once. Let's go on in there, right?" Ah! Like you would scream, "No, don't go in the house. He's a murderer." There's bodies hanging around. You only live once.
Right.
Yo, man, light me up. Pour me something. Hit my glass. Let me give me a steak and cheese. We gonna go in here because you only live. Who said he gonna kill you?
Yeah, but to me, it's like
maybe he's just gonna tie you up and skin. Like you were saying, Phyllis, we got to get. I hit people with that all the time. Who said you're going to die?
Yeah, you'll be around for a long time.
You could be around for a long time.
And then you have this big messed up
colostomy
body
bags
that you have to deal with.
Thank
you
you.
have to buy 2 seats on the airplane because you're this big.
Because
you only live once.
People are even smaller, but internally they're so messed up.
You don't see the surgeries, the prosthetic. Look. When they start talking about taking toes because of diabetes, you're in trouble.
Exactly.
After the toe comes the foot, and the foot up to the knee. You're not dead, but we're just gonna cut off little pieces of you at a time until we get to something you really wanted. So what's the operative word? Live. We've got to make up our mind. We don't want to live that way. Why are we accepting what they're showing us? And that was Dr. Brooks and ours conversation. Just amazing to shake our head. Dr. Brooks, man, it is amazing how you and I. Okay. You take a pie, take a room full of hungry people, 20 people in the room, haven't fed them for a week. I'm going to open the door, I'm going to slide in a pie. How do I keep the pie to myself? I've been asking this question and speaking to people for, 15, 20 years. How can I keep that pie to myself? Okay, force ain't going to work because it's more them than it is me, right?
Right.
Maybe I should just grab the pie and try to eat it all at one time. No, that ain't going to work because I can't. It's not enough. I can't hold the whole pie in my stomach at one time. Plus, I've done all this scenario to find, but I want the pie to myself. I have the solution. Wayne Harris is going to use the solution right now, how to keep the whole pie to yourself. Spit on it.
Oh.
What did you say, Dr. Baruch?
That's right. That's about right.
You a nasty somebody.
My brother used to do that.
Spit on it. The rest of them will turn their back, walk away. I got it to myself because I don't mind eating my spit, right? Now, they might beat me up a little bit for that, but nobody's going to eat the pie. Even after I take the butt whipping, I still have the pie. Isn't that what you just said?
Yep.
I make it repulsive.
You make it repulsive.
To the other people, and I can compete it to them. They figured that out.
Yep. And that's where all of our solutions, our problems in education are repulsive. The solution is repulsive to it because it means, wait a minute, somebody's going to have to stay home and teach these kids.
Somebody
say it again, Baruch.
Spend time with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Sacrifice.
We got to teach our children all of a sudden. And then,
that's your job.
And then you look at health. You mean, I don't need to put my health in the hands of a medical doctor and the hospital and so on and so forth. You mean, I got to take that responsibility with every meal that I eat? I got to do that? Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. And then you go down the list of everything, that's taking place. If we, in 2016, have another, uprising because we think the lighter or fairer complected, or what I call non-melanated brothers and sisters are treating us unfairly. If we have another march, another demonstration, another mean conversation, then schizophrenia is not the right word. It's just not the right word. How many years, how many times, how much do we have to go through before we finally say, well, wait a minute, maybe the scorpion it's just his nature to sting the frog on the way across the lake.
Couldn't help it.
Maybe it's just he just can't help himself.
Even if it's necessity, it can be just fun. Maybe he just likes stinging frogs.
That's right.
That's what he through his development, he's developed this.
That's in his nature.
Some antisocial behavior just to hurt people, whatever the case. Where the solution? Where do we talk about solutions? We talked about a couple ways to start tying things together. One, okay, our young people, our youth. Again, from the farm, to teach sacrifice. Dr. Baruch and I said, what is the definition of an investment? The definition of investment is a present outlay for a future return.
That's right.
Present, what I do now will affect future. I am banging that on my kids. Everybody, that counteracts the microwave society. I got to have it now. Look, I give you $100 now. I give you $1,000 next week. Just think on it.
Right.
What would you rather have? $100 now, $1,000 next week.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, I got to know what 1,000 and 100, what the difference is.
Right. That's why.
Where do I put the decimal point makes a whole difference, right?
Exactly.
That's why you're going to go. That's why school is important. That little dot. How many people know if their check is right? Well, I'm going to go to school so I can learn how to count. So that if I do get the job, I know this dude's been taking $100 out of my check for the
But
for
if
the
they
last
keep
5.
telling the kids in school 1 + 1 = 5 because you said so,
Man,
that's a problem.
That part was crazy.
But okay, where do we start there?
5, and you could spell words any way you want to.
But if mama wasn't having a conversation like we just said with the daughter when she came on, we never would have found out that was happening.
Yeah. But see, there's the root. These people are sending their children out to school to be raised by the teachers. That's not the teacher's responsibility.
That's our
You have to be
responsibility.
an integral part of your child's education. My child, both my boys, knew how to read before they even went to school. So I took care of that.
You took some time.
But that's what you're supposed to do. I was their mother. It took me time. I took the time to have them and give birth to them. So it's my responsibility to make sure that they are the best, well-informed, educated that I can make them be.
But but at least speaking, man, I'm telling you all, it's amazing. It is. If you believe in evolution, I call it de-evolution from our generation to this young lady's generation, and now to the children they're going to have. Oh my goodness. Dr. Baruch and I talked about
We just reel that back
about
in.
this. What if you ask a young person today? Ask a 15-year-old what's old.
They'll say I'm old.
Yeah, you ever call you ma'am? You're like me, ma'am.
They called me ancient.
Dr.
then.
Baruch wearing this gray with pride. You know, now everybody would call you Mr. and Sir. What are you talking to? Like, what? I'm not
They
old.
called me
Right.
Stegosaurus.
Bro, we aren't even looking forward enough to know that you can live 50 is young.
50 is young.
80? What? Well, you used to lose your teeth in your 50s, and your hair start falling out, and you start getting on a crutch, and you can't walk, and you can't. To teach our people that life is long life,
Yes.
quality of life. This investment thing, you're gonna do it now. Why? You're gonna clean your room. What you gonna? I ain't giving you nothing now. But maybe next week, every little way we can start educating, and what not only educating. I'm going to say modeling. Because see, they're modeling us. Turn that TV off. Turn that media off. But that means I got to spend some time. What they going to do if I turn
Well,
the
see,
TV
my
off?
children only, while they were in school, the only days that they allowed them to watch TV, well, we watched Jeopardy every night. They love Jeopardy.
Okay.
So we watched Jeopardy after dinner. But the television went off. They had to read. And then Friday to Sunday.
Books.
Heck yeah. Friday to Sunday. That
But if
was
you
when they
can't
got to
read,
see
you ain't gonna want to read, right?
I can't with this not reading stuff in school. But that's what we're dealing with. I'm working with a project now with some young people.
Okay.
And I'm working with a project now. This young man had a full scholarship to a university. He was recruited by, I'm not going to give the school's name, but a very prominent private school to play ball. The Booster Club made bucks off of this kid.
People don't know what that means.
They went to the regionals or whatever. They were winning. This kid was a star. But guess what? Once the kid got to when they gave him the scholarship, then the school said, we can't use you. And he was like, why? ACC rules. You didn't make the SAT scores. Your GPA wasn't high enough. And so now we're struggling to get this kid because the system failed him. They used that child to make money for their booster club.
Wow.
The coach didn't give a damn about him. The counselors, the teachers, no one did. But the onus goes on everyone. Him too. And where was his parents? They should have been in there on the grades. The coach should have been all. But the point is, you have these people out here that are pushing these kids through to use them to make money for their school, and now they're stuck. So now we're trying to raise funds to pay for this child
To go to school.
the first year, because this is what they said. They said if we can get him in that first year, get his grades back up, then he could probably regain his scholarship. So now we're scrambling, trying to have fundraisers to get this child some money so he could go back to school.
And even that sucks that they could deny him for not passing a standardized test.
Yeah.
Because, I was reading an article and it was pretty much saying you might have a student who is doing terrible in their math class, but when they go to the laundromat after school, they know how to count out their quarters.
Exactly.
They know how to do math. But
SAT
according
is
to
a
this
joke to me.
test, we try to teach students as if they're all one student.
Right.
You can't teach everyone and
They're
test
not.
everyone the same way.
No, they can't.
Everyone's not going to pass based on this standard.
Is that true though? Because
And-
what someone, I think you said earlier, though, when you go to the bank, you can't go to the bank and go up to the front and say, well, could I please get, you can't, grocery store, could I get some more groceries? Could I get some more money? Because I was learning disabled.
Well, I think this is a great tie-in, and I want to express my appreciation to all of you for coming on board with us today. Obviously, a spirited conversation, and one in which we all have desires and interest in things getting better. And in some instances, we're surprised that things have gotten to where they are. But I think it's important that we know that we're not going to solve this in a conversation. Right. We're not going to solve this in a day. And we have to know whatever progress we're making today is normally based on data we've gotten that might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years old or months old. And the system that is working against us is already projected into the 20th and 30th and 50th year forward. So understanding that,
Right.
They already know when our population will be zero. They already planned when our population growth would be zero, and now they're seeing the negative population growth. And then there's also another dynamic that many of us don't recognize is here, and that is that the population growth of the people that were here before the immigrants started coming from the Caribbean and the immigrants started coming from South America and Africa, who look like us but are not us. The numbers of us that were already here is one of the fastest decreasing numbers in the United States of America. So you'll look up and see that, we're still, whatever, 13% of the population, or we're still whatever we were, but we're not. Those of us who were here, our bloodline has been here ever since, or our bloodline came over on a ship, or our bloodline, again, many of us are indigenous, and that's a whole nother show. But that we will see when you look at the numbers that we are the ones that are under attack. And then so you have a disconnect even within our community that there's some people that's not us, that's them. They're the ones having to deal with that. That ain't our problem. We're doing things differently. Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you who are in the listening and viewing audience, and I want to thank you in the studio for coming out with us. Heleese, my new 5-year minimum contract show host. Thank you for signing the contract on camera. On camera, she signed it. And Brother Wayne Harris, thank you very much for being on board with us. We look forward to having you back. And Sister Phyllis Hathaway, we appreciate you for coming on board and again bringing the energy that you bring and the passion that you bring to working to make things different. So we appreciate all of you for coming on the Not On My Watch show. Again, I am Dr. Baruch, and this is what we do on Wednesdays between 11 and 1 o'clock. We're going to close out our show with another video. I want you all to check out this video as we close out. And although I don't agree with every part of it, but it's one of those things where when you check out what other people are doing and saying and how these agendas have been put in place 100 years ago and they're still being rolled out and we're asleep thinking everything is cool, again, we're using a peacetime strategy at the height of the war. You all be good, stay healthy, and I'll see you next week. This is the Not on My Watch show. I'm Dr. Baruch. Check this out.
What does that sound?
I know this one. Where
I'm not hearing this song. Makes it sound
I've seen this before.
Simply assumed
in the book
that
and in the movie version a couple of years
a lot of
later,
white people
Griffin,
will
a
say,
white
well,
man,
how
tells
dare
the story
you
of how he
criticize
darkened his skin
affirmative
with
action?
dye,
was just
medicine,
assumed,
and
especially
intense
because I'm
UV
black.
rays
People would
in
come
order
to my
to
office door,
experience what it was
shaking
like
their heads
for
about the
African
ban. It would
Americans in
never
the
have
pre-civil
occurred
rights
to
South of
anybody
the 19th. In the book, and in the movie version a couple of years later, Griffin, a white man, tells the story of how he darkened his skin with dye, medicine, and intense UV rays in order to experience what it was like for African Americans in the pre-civil rights South of the 1950s.
Well, what's the big idea? I want to find out what it's like to be a Negro in the South. You kidding?
Over the course of 6 weeks, Griffin recounts how he was harassed, followed, and threatened by racist whites.
You better find yourself another place to sit.
And in the end, he says that his assumption blacks were treated like second-class citizens turned out to be wrong. It was closer to 10th class.
You know what we do to troublemakers here?
No?
You kill a nigger and toss him one of these swamps, and nobody ever know anything about it.
The book became a bestseller and a sensation, and it had a profound impact on me and countless other high schoolers. But when I revisited the book as an adult, something stood out that I hadn't thought about as a kid. Toward the very beginning of the book, Griffin asks, how else, except by becoming a Negro, could a white man hope to learn the truth, ultimately concluding that the best way to find out if we had second-class citizens and what their plight was would be to become one of them.
White Southerner has to know what it's like to be a Negro. Really know.
And you know what it's like, huh? After 10 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is, you know.
No, I don't know. And I can never know.
Rereading this, I realized the entire premise was off. Griffin was attempting to understand racism by momentarily occupying blackness. He became a person of color. And while there's no question there's real value in whites trying to understand and ultimately empathize with the experience of African Americans, it struck me that we rarely, if ever, turn this line of thinking around. In other words, instead of asking what it's like to be black, what if we just asked what it's like to be white?
I don't really know what it means really to be white or what it's supposed to mean.
I guess I never really thought about it, but it was always kind of a negative thing.
When I ask students what it means to be white, what I hear from them is a lot of confusion.
The question, what does it mean to be white? It baffles my mind. I don't know what it means.
Whiteness isn't something we think much about, and in some ways, that makes perfect sense.
In terms of white culture, it's very general and very vague. Like I think sitting down and having dinner with my family, but all cultures do that.
Because when you're part of a dominant group, you're not forced to spend a lot of time thinking about how you fit in or about how your privileges as a member of the dominant group might affect others who don't belong to it.
In order to express ourselves, we don't have to fit into Black culture, Hispanic culture, Asian American culture. We can just kind of do what we want. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just...
This doesn't mean that all white people have it easy or that there aren't differences between the struggles of poor and working class white kids who have to work for everything and rich white kids who have things handed to them. Of course, those differences are real. But none of that changes the fact that throughout the history of this country, being white has been far easier than not being white.
Oh, God, I love being white. I really do. Seriously, if you're not white, you're missing out, because this is thoroughly good. But let me be clear, by the way. I'm not saying that white people are better. I'm saying that being white is clearly better. Who could even argue? If it was an option, I would re-up every year. Oh, yeah, I'll take white again. Absolutely. I've been enjoying that. I'm going to stick with white. Thank you.
And let's face it, there's no denying that white people in the U.S. have had privileges throughout history that people of color simply haven't. Consider the very first law passed by Congress after ratifying the Constitution, the Naturalization Act of 1790, which said that free white persons and only free white persons could become full citizens of this country. Basically, our very first law as a constitutional republic gave white immigrants privileges that black people and immigrants of color and indigenous native North Americans weren't given, all of it based purely on skin color. And whether we want to acknowledge it or not, this kind of systematic white privilege and race-based favoritism is built into the very foundations of the country.
In 1935, Franklin D. Roosevelt put his signature on the Social Security Act.
Look at all the social programs that pulled the U.S. out of the Great Depression and helped create the middle class in this country. Programs like job insurance, which provided cash to people to give them a leg up as they looked for work.
To show how job insurance works, let's introduce Steve, a Louisiana worker who has just lost his job. He goes first to the nearest state employment office to register for a new job. Steve needn't hesitate about going in, because this office was set up just to help people like him.
But while Steve in Louisiana could apply for job insurance, not everyone else could.
Of course, he cannot collect if he belongs to any of the groups of workers that the law does not insure. These are agricultural workers, domestic service in private homes.
Agricultural workers and domestic service workers didn't qualify for assistance, and it turns out this had everything to do with race. These two jobs were overwhelmingly held by black people, and over 80% of all blacks worked in those professions. So the only way FDR could get Southern Democrats to support the Social Security Act was if he agreed to exclude those workers from benefits. This was a conscious attempt by some in Congress to exclude as many blacks as possible, and the net effect of it was to give preferential treatment to whites.
Thousands of people get a big thrill out of looking at model houses, and a much bigger thrill when they buy one.
It was the same story with crucial housing assistance for the American middle class. Loans provided by the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration, allowed working-class families for really the first time in American history to own their own homes.
Home ownership is the basis of a happy, contented family life. And now, through the use of a National Housing Act insured mortgage, is brought within the reach of all citizens.
But the way the bill was written, the American dream of home ownership wasn't within the reach of everyone. For the first 30 years of the program, about 98% of the recipients were white. People of color were almost completely barred. Then there was the GI Bill, which provided immense benefits to returning veterans, including low-cost mortgages, loans to start a business, cash payments for tuition, and living expenses. What the GI Bill didn't do is protect black veterans, who qualified for that assistance also from the kinds of legal discrimination rampant in pre-civil rights America. The result was that the vast majority of those who benefited from the GI Bill were white veterans, If a program like the GI Bill ended up disproportionately benefiting people of color, you know what we'd call that? We'd call it welfare. We'd call it a reward, a handout, a gravy train.
The GI Bill of Rights is not a reward, or a handout, or a gravy train,
But that's not the way it was described.
but rather an American way to make it easier for each man to take his place once again in the community and get some of those things for which he went to war.
And I'm not trying to say programs like these are bad. There's no question. They've been instrumental in creating and expanding opportunities for millions of people. The point is that we're being dishonest if we fail to explicitly acknowledge how they almost exclusively benefited white people.
Who is covered by the Social Security Act? People like these.
It needs to be understood that for hundreds of years, government assistance programs pumped literally hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of wealth into the hands of white families before people of color even got to the starting gate. This is what we're talking about when we talk about white privilege, the structural advantages built into our very system that have helped white people, often without us knowing it, while making things more difficult for people of color.
For me, being white means that I'm treated as the default in a lot of cases.
Some of those privileges would be material, better job opportunities, better housing access, better educational opportunities, but some of them are psychological. Just the realization that I'm not going to be racially profiled when I'm driving around town or when I'm shopping in the mall, and I'm not going to be followed by store security because they think I might shoplift.
Before I got to college and stuff, I don't know, I was more of like a punk and what have you, so there were times where I would be like shoplifting, and my race occurred to me then because I was like, man, I feel like if I was any other race or ethnicity, I would be being watched by like security. So I felt very, you know, like nothing would happen, so I didn't really mind doing it because I didn't get caught ever.
I read a paper where somebody was listing an experience where it was a group of females talking about, you know, what it's like to be a woman. And there was a white woman talking to a black woman saying, you know, well, we have similar experiences because we're both women. And the black woman looks at her and says, no, we don't. And she goes, well, yeah, but we're both women. And the black woman says, no, because when you look in the mirror, you're a woman. When I look in the mirror, I'm a black woman. So it's that thing that you have to, it's that thing that you don't notice.
For myself, from the very beginning, I was seen as a bright and capable child, and I was tracked into the higher level classes. If I didn't do well, I never had to worry that it would be ascribed to my race, that someone might say, well, of course he didn't do really very well on the SAT because, you know, he is white. And this isn't just an anecdotal one-off story. The fact is there are 20 to 25 years of research, studies which have found that students of color all around the country are worried about confirming negative stereotypes in the classroom. Any fear that somehow they might live down to a negative group stigma directly affects their performance on tests. That's something that I, as a white student, didn't have to worry about. And so we live with the legacy of inequality that began so long ago, but also the legacy of obliviousness that allows those of us in the dominant group to rarely even think about these matters. And even with all the changes and the progress we have seen, that is something that hasn't changed.